This is a Balrog, and the central protagonist to today's tale, a fiery demon of the ancient world, a servant of Morgoth and Durin's Bane. Back in July 2021, myself, Carl from Carl Makes Stuff, Elston from Elston Nation, and Josh from The Pickle Jar collaborated to bring one of our collective favourite scenes from The Lord of the Rings to life. Gandalf versus the Balrog on the Bridge of Khazad, resulting in this cinematic masterpiece. All four collaborators of course made a video of their contribution to the project, including Josh's tutorial on how to paint the Balrog. But just as sure as death and taxes, there's always that one guy in the comments who has to point out the painfully obvious.
No! Balrog does not have wings!
Last year I saw this super cool book nook with an awesome LED conversion of Gandalf and the Balrog commencing their duel on the Instagram feed of Fantasy Set 85. And more recently, this awesome Bridge of Khazad diorama by Boyle Hobby Time. I absolutely love the use of LEDs to add atmosphere and bring the piece to life, and I've always wanted to try using these LED filaments in a build. So before anyone calls me out in the comments for my thumbnail, yes, I am copying Boyle Hobby Time. But imitation is the highest form of flattery, and I'm going to do my own thing and try and put my own spin on the whole Gandalf versus Balrog scenario by doing a different scene. So I pose the question to you guys, do Balrogs have wings? And if not, why do the GW minis have wings? Find out in the comments, guys, while I try to upgrade this Balrog to Shadow and Flame and build a diorama that I have wanted to make for a very long time. Gandalf slaying the Balrog on Durin's Tower at the peak of Zorak-Sagil. As I get stuck into this build, I want to send out a huge thank you to Thomas from Chickens Tabletop Crafting. He sourced and sent me out a huge box of 4-inch thick XPS foam. Okay, so I've watched the section where Gandalf and Balrog are fighting on Durin's Tower so many times just to see if I can figure out the shape of the tower itself. And from what I can tell, it's a 12-sided shape, which is a dodecagon. And the way I'm going to get the cuts is I have to take a 15-degree cut off both sides of these long sections so that whenever I glue them together, it'll be a tower that is a dodecagon. And I'm just going to say a 12-sided shape from now on. So you can see how that whenever I glue those together and I have 12 of them, it's going to make up a dodecagon. I actually got it. No. I'm also going to put in some buttresses in between, like so. They're also going to have a slightly tapered angle. So I'm going to get all of these cut and then I'm going to glue it together. Time lapse of this process is going to take far too long, so by the power of editing, high quality original YouTube transition. Okay, so the basis of my tower is all glued and pinned, but that's going to take quite a bit of time to dry. So while that's drying, I thought I would show you something pretty cool that relates back to the whole Balrog with wings conversation. Okay, so this is a book that was sent over to me by my parents because I'm using it in an upcoming top secret video, but it is made in 1979 by Joan Wyatt. It's got loads of awesome artwork from The Lord of the Rings, and I used to flick through this as a kid all the time. And there's an awesome picture of the Balrog in here. Here we go. And clearly you can see that the Balrog is depicted with big bat-like wings. The thing is that there's a little blurb that goes along with it. The journey through Moria was undisturbed until near the end. When the members of the party are ambushed by orcs, they have a chance to escape over the narrow bridge of Khazad, but are pursued by the dread Balrog. Tolkien gives little help to the illustrator of the Balrog, but the traditional devilish trappings of bat wings and horns are usually felt to be right. This elemental creature of fire attacks the Fellowship, and Gandalf faces it boldly. So it's early books like this and other publications that have kind of proliferated the idea that Balrogs have wings. It's wrong. But you can kind of forgive people who haven't read the books but are still Tolkien fans for thinking that they do have wings, but they don't. Also, there are only 3 instances in Tolkien's writings where Balrogs are slain, and guess how all 3 of them die? They fall. That just doesn't make any sense if they've got wings. Right, enough of this procrastination. Let's get back to the project. Did you know, guys, that if you smash the subscribe button and give this video a like, all of your wildest dreams will come true?
What are we waiting for?
Okay, this part is complicated. I really considered trying to make a tutorial part for this section on how to build this, but to be quite honest, this video would end up being about an hour long because there's so many different angles and cuts going from every direction just to build this one little section here. It took me a whole day to try and figure out just how to make that. What I will say though is that I'm using 15-degree cuts and 30-degree cuts apart from this one little middle part where it's a 20-degree cut just to get that dip in the middle. I am going to try and make a video for my Patreon members just to explain this in depth, so if you're interested in learning how to build this complicated shape, then check me out on Patreon. So I've been adding some more detail to this tower. I have offset the buttresses on the bottom section. I basically carved them off and have moved them, and have added these little triangle sections into the center just to give more of a dwarven structure kind of look to it. There's absolutely no point in me doing this the whole entire way around the tower, but I am, and the only reason for that is because it's for my own build satisfaction. I want to see this structure kind of complete. And then a lot of it's going to get carved away and covered over with all the stuff that's going to make the mountain. So this is literally just for fun, because there's no point in doing it for the actual build. So this texturing technique with the pencil coming in at an angle is something I picked up off Jared Boom whenever we were doing our Balin's Tomb Book Nook collaboration. It kind of gives this texture that kind of looks like it's been carved out with pickaxes, which suits the dwarves perfectly. I wanted this to look like it's just been carved directly out of the stone of the mountain, so this technique is perfect for that. If you want to see that Balin's Tomb Book Nook, by the way, there's a link up there, or you can check out my other videos after you watch this one. Okay, time to make some stairs for the center of the tower. Here you can see me doing some foam carving by hand during one of our Discord hangouts. I love the Proxon tool for its accuracy and speed, but I still love the raw hands-on approach. And for things like staircases, I find that the human error that comes with hand carving ends up looking a little more authentic and natural anyway. This is a tedious job though, it takes time and patience, and I often find that I need company to push through with crafting jobs like this. I get to hang out with some of the awesome people in my Discord community. It's so much easier to sit and get jobs like this done when you have cool people to hang out with and talk about lots of important subjects like Sasquatch, aliens and early civilizations. It's really fun, you should come and hang out with us, Let me know in the comments below if you want to hang out, and I will send you a Discord link in the comments below. For the first portion of this video, I've been using XPS foam, the pink stuff, which is amazing for building structures like houses, buildings and towers. But when it comes to natural terrain, I far prefer using PIR foam. This foam is a bit different in that it is heat resistant, so it can't be cut with hot wire. But it is very easy to carve with a knife, making it the perfect material to carve a mountain out of. Once the main structure of the mountain was carved, I used modelling compound from Geek Gaming Scenics to fill in any gaps and blend the mountainside into the stonework of the tower. Now at this point you could just go ahead and paint the foam directly, but I chose to add another layer of texture by mixing up a texture paste using grey tile grout, wood glue, water, and I then applied it all over the model with an old brush. I actually did a further 2 coats after this initial coat. This ends up giving you a really robust crust to your terrain that is not easily dented or damaged, and it also looks really convincingly like real stone. And now I've come to the part of the build that I've absolutely been dreading since the very start, and that is to break the top of it and make it into ruins, because the top of Durin's tower in the movies is all broken down, and it just feels so unnatural to break something that you put so much effort into. But we're going for as close to the movies as I can do, so I'm gonna have to break it.
Emotional damage.
Not gonna lie, that did actually hurt quite a bit, and I was quite nervous to overcut and end up not looking like the tower in the movie, but I think I managed to get it just about right. With the paint job on the model, I used the exact same colours on the rocky mountain as I used on the tower itself. Durin's tower is hewn from the rock, which actually made it quite an easy paint job, just time consuming. As always with stone, I worked my way up through darker greys, adding in tones of burnt umber and green greys, dry brushing my way up to the lightest tones for the highlights. Once I had a reasonably good stone effect, it was time to throw down some washes. This time I decided to go for 3 different coloured washes, a green wash, a brown wash and a black wash, all applied simultaneously over different areas of the model. The 3 different colours and randomness of how the wash falls on the model just helps to give the variation in tones and colour that make the stonework seem more natural as opposed to painted by a human. People are really bad at being truly random. Lastly, I decided to not let the offcuts of the tower go to waste. I imagined that these structures had fallen down and lay as debris around the mountainside. It also adds just another layer of detail to the final model. Okay, while I piece together this Balrog and rig it for lights, let's take a quick look at how Tolkien describes the Balrog in the Fellowship of the Ring and see if we can put this whole wings debate to bed.
The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other hand, Glamdring gleamed, cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like 2 vast wings.
So you can see from this text that Tolkien is making a descriptive comparison. He is not saying the Balrog actually has wings, he is saying the shadow about the Balrog looked like wings. Obviously GW has created big bat-like wings because these models are based on the movies. I'm going to try and convert this though to more shadow and flame kind of miniature, and I'm going to carve out the membranes, add some lights in around here, and then use some fiber and pillow stuffing to create some effect like shadow and flame. Hopefully this idea works. But, I hear you say, slightly farther into the chapter we come to the quote,
Suddenly it drew itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall.
This is a literary trope that Tolkien often employs in his writing. First he makes a comparative description, then moving forward he writes as if you understand that comparative description. so the reader is intended to still see a great shadow in their mind's eye as opposed to actual wings. And that's the end of the debate as far as I'm concerned. Boom, mic drop. But maybe you guys disagree. If you think I'm talking utter nonsense, fight me in the comments or back me up and let those people know exactly how wrong they are. Anyway, you can see from the footage that in the end I decided to not convert the Balrog that Josh from Pickle Jar gave me. I just couldn't bring myself to ruin his paint job, so that model is still sitting proudly on my shelf. Besides, starting from scratch made it much easier to embed all of the electronics into the model. Speaking of electronics, I got my Castle Conway board and lights from Terraintronics, and as it happens, David was passing through London and came over right at the perfect moment, just as I was about to finish the Balrog. This was not a planned collaboration. So I'm really happy with it so far. I've got this bit down the middle, but I've also attached the LEDs in around the back of the Balrog. And I think once I've got the batting on all around the wings, it's just going to look really cool.
I think those flexi LEDs are really cool, but I think you could knock it up one level higher, right, by having them pulse in and out like swelling lights around them.
That's a really cool idea, but man, there's no way I'm rewiring this. No way. This took absolutely ages to do.
You don't have to rewire anything, alright? A couple of Terraintronics parts and do you have a soldering iron? So I'm using a Terraintronics Canadron Castle 1-inch kit for this. This is normally used to open doors and so on, but in fact what it has is the brain that's going to do the randomization for flickering LEDs and things, but it's also a little circuit board that will control the LEDs that we want to do as well, right? So you got the brain that's doing the randomization and then this little interface board that sits on top. We're going to stack them both together. That's what I'm going to do.
I'm going to sit here and stick some foam onto a Balrog. It's so complicated. If you're interested in learning how to add electronics and effects into your terrain builds, you must check out Terraintronics here on YouTube. I will leave a link in the description below to David's channel and shop. I will say that it did take a little while to figure out exactly how to get the LED noodles to flash in the way that we wanted them to.
Nothing was happening.
You did. Very nice.
But in the end, David figured it out.
Here it comes, down connecting.
Yes! Look at that.
It is beautiful. I tell you, when you color that foam, it's gonna look amazing.
So we have a big angry flaming teddy bear. Now all we need is a grumpy old man to kick its ass. In the movies we see that at this stage, in the battle between Gandalf and the Balrog, Gandalf has lost his staff and is in full-on action mode with his sword. Games Workshop don't have a specific model for that, so I had to do a little conversion job on a model that I felt had just the right pose for a lunging sword thrust. Bonus nerd points for anyone who can tell me from which set and which model I am converting in the comments below. It was a little bit tricky to add the LED sword to the model. I had to use a Dremel to carve out the hand to hold it and then find a way to work the wiring in and around the grooves of his cloak to hide them as best as I could. I then used a little super glue and baking powder to fill in the gaps, which covered the seams nicely. I did go back later on and touch up all of the damaged paintwork, but I was quite happy with how well hidden the wires were in the end. So originally I did wire up Gandalf's sword with a blue LED and did a few test shots. Unfortunately, I think it looks a little bit too much like a lightsaber, so I've switched it out for a white LED, which is much more in keeping with the movies. You can see in the scene with the Balrog and Gandalf that Gandalf's sword is hit by lightning and shines bright white, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So even though the blue looks cool, I'm going for white. Speaking of white, it's time to do the final touches on this build by adding all the snow effects. Originally I had planned to use snow paste and micro balloons for this, but I came across an amazing tutorial from Mel the Terrain Tutor on how to do cheap, deep snow effects. Rather than go into detail here, however, I will leave a link to that tutorial in the description below this video. Instead, seeing as Christmas is just around the corner and snow is quite wintry, here's a quick festive montage while I finish off this build. Okay, I have tried my absolute best to get this build looking just like the film. I think I've come quite close. I don't know. What do you guys think? Here's the final reveal.
From the lowest dungeon to the highest peak, I've fought him, the Balrog of Morgoth.
I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my wonderful Patreon members who have been supporting me over the last 2 years. I honestly can't express how much I appreciate you all. There are more updates coming very soon, and I also feel like we're well overdue a community hangout on Discord, so that's coming soon. Also, massive thanks to David from Terraintronics for helping me sort out the flicker in the lights. It was amazing to sit down with a friend and craft at a table for an evening. That's something I haven't done in quite a while. And also to Thomas from Chickens Tabletop Crafting for this massive box of foam that will keep me going for quite a while. To everyone else, thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing, like this video and start a conversation with me in the comments. So until next we meet, Nala way, go van and vin.